And welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, WIZE. And this next guest, I've been trying to get him on the show since I've met him 3 years ago. He's been blowing it up. He is killing the AI game. This man has become one of the aficionados in the AI game, and I'm very excited to have him on the show. Like I said, I've been trying to get him on for the last 3 years since I met him at Podfest. I'm excited. I'm a fan, and I'm just happy to finally get to interview him. So let's bring him on, Larry Roberts. Hello.
What's happening? Man?
What's up, brother, man?
It's cool to finally be here. Appreciate all the mad props in the intro there, but let's be fair, okay? I think this has been booked for like 6 months.
Yes, it has been booked for like 6 months. It has, but I've been trying to get you on the show for the last 3 years.
I'm only responsible for 2.5 years of that.
Yes, I'm sorry. My schedule is I can't complain, man. I'm booked into January.
Good Lord, dude, that's crazy. No, and I'll be honest. I mean, I used to do that with my show back in the day, but now it's just, I might be booked out for 2 weeks on the show, something like that. But it just gets to be too much. And, I found people were getting disinterested. They were like, who are you? And why am I on your show? But your show, I think, is so versatile that you can book that far out. You know what I mean? Because when you just have another generic business podcast show, which is what my old show basically was, people are trying to come on the show to promote their book or promote their course or promote this. And by the time, if you're booking 6 months out, their promotional period or whatever it is already, their book's already made #1 Amazon bestseller, and they forgot they even wrote it by then. So, but man, it's great to be here for real. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know, man, brother. Like I said, I'm excited to have you on the show, man. But this has been 3 years in the making. Let's just jump right into it, man.
Yeah, man.
You've been in the game for a minute. You've been in the game doing this for a minute, and right, like I said, now you're one of the first people I saw talking about ChatGPT.
Yeah,
you're one of the first ones that was doing any other AI things with what you're working with. What got you started in the AI? What got you to see that future and see where AI was headed?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just timing too, but my background from a corporate perspective was I was a business intelligence analyst. So we were already using AI and predictive analytics to analyze massive data sets because the company that I worked for at the time, I mean, they were $1 billion company and they had massive, $100 million clients. And we were taking data from all these different clients, normalizing that data and using AI to predict potential inventory levels and sales and all that fun stuff. So while in no way, shape, fashion, or form was I an AI guru or a business intelligence guru by any stretch, somehow I had that title. So I was already somewhat familiar with AI. So when ChatGPT dropped, I was like, oh my gosh, I can see where this could potentially be something really game-changing for the content creation space. And then again, it was the timing that came into play because ChatGPT dropped in November of 22. Yeah. And then Podfest rolled around in January of 23. And being a part of Podfest, I had the opportunity to do a talk on AI literally 6 weeks after it dropped. So I was one of the first guys to talk about it just because Podfest happened to land a month later after it dropped. So a lot of it was just divine intervention and timing and that sort of thing. But at the same time, also having the tech background that I had at the time also allowed me to realize the potential that was there for this and the impact that it could have on other content creators.
So I know the story behind the red hat. Can you tell, because that's your company, Red Hat Media. Can you tell the people out, the audience, where does the red hat come from? Where did the branding and everything come from?
Man, and here we go. See, you're going to expose me as a fraud here because everything I'm saying is like, man, it was just timing. It just worked out. It was just perfect. But I mean, honestly, I've been at this game, you said for a minute, but literally this year's a decade. I started in 2014. So about
Yeah,
May of 2014 was when I launched my first podcast. But the hat, man, the hat was the thing. We were actually at a conference at the Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida, and I gave a talk, and I think that talk at the time was, I think it was building online courses and building your brand through online. I think that was the talk I did, but at the time, and if you look behind me here, it's in a glass case now. This Supreme hat that's right behind me, and
yeah.
camera.
That's the one. That's the one you still
Yeah,
used to always rocking. Yeah, I
so
see it.
yeah, I used to always rock that Supreme hat, and obviously it's red and it just says Supreme in white letters. Because if you're not familiar with Supreme, it's just a
Yeah,
lifestyle brand, right? So I wore that hat on stage and I did that talk, and I came down, and a mutual friend of ours, Mr.
yes.
Alex Sanfilippo,
Shout
he
out
and
to
I,
Alex.
shout out to Alex. I'm Alex's number one fan. But whenever we do talks, and we typically do talks at the same conferences, and
Yeah,
we'll give each other a hard time. We'll come out, off stage and just give each other shit a little bit, just having fun. And so we went through that, and he goes, "But seriously, dude, why are you wearing that Supreme hat?" And I told him, I said, "Man, I'm just trying to be cool." At the time, I think I was 48 or 49, and I'm getting old, but I'm still trying to be cool. I got my Jordans on, I got my Rock Revival jeans on, and I had my Supreme hat on. So I was just a walking billboard for all these other brands. And he goes, "Well, are they paying you?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Well, then why are you wearing their stuff on stage?" He goes, "You need to be wearing your stuff on stage." And he goes, but I love that red hat. Because, well, I'm a fairly big guy. I'm about six
yeah,
three, and I weigh in about uh, 250 or so. And uh, that red hat on top of my dome, it's just like a beacon. And he goes, "Man, I can see you literally all the way across this arena." So I love the red. So I went home and I thought, man, that makes total sense. I don't want to be wearing somebody else's merch on stage, but the red hat, man, I jumped on Amazon, bought at the time, they were $6 red unbranded flat build hat, just like you see right now.
yeah.
Uh, Gave it a little 5-degree tilt to the right, and the red hat guy was born. So that's where it came from, but it didn't even really hit until it was probably 3 or 4 months later. I was at Bitcoin Miami, and Bitcoin Miami is a massive conference. I mean, there's like 30, 40,000 people there over the span of 3 or 4 days. And during that time that I was there creating content, multiple people I had never met in my life came up to me and said, "Are you the podcast guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but how'd you know?" And they go, "The red hat, dude." So I'm like, "Oh my God, this is for real. This
Yeah.
is really, really effective." So from that point on, man, I changed my business name. I changed everything. And it was Red Hat from that point forward. And now the Red Hat is synonymous with podcasting, somewhat synonymous with personal branding. Somehow that accident made me a personal branding expert. So, but I mean, it just works. And, I've helped a lot of people find their personal brands as well. I wrote the book that you see on the other side of me here. It's called Under the Red Hat, because a lot of people think that the red hat is the brand, and it's really not. It's just an identifier. It's just a logo. It's just something that I wear to stand out. But the brand itself, the personal brand, is everything that's under the red hat. It's me. It's my voice. It's the way that I conduct business. It's the way that I treat people. It's the way that people look at me and talk about me behind my back. So understanding that the brand isn't the hat, it's everything that's under the hat, absolutely critical. And that's what I try to help people understand, is that while, yes, you need that identifying marker, whatever it may be, you need that logo, whatever it may be, your real brand is you. So that's what I help people try to understand, and I do that through my book as well as some of my talks and some of my consulting as well.
And that's actually one of the reasons, because I used to stay rocking my Yankee fitted, right? And but like you said, who are they paying you to it's not like I need the Yankees need me to sponsor, like they well known, so so but it's like that's one of the reasons when I do my show, I don't rock anything with anyone's logo or anything like that, because it's free promotion
Yeah.
and they're not paying you for it. So I understand where that came from. um
Yeah, that's the only reason the hat's in the glass case back here. It's just because it's the story.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing it to promote Supreme or make it try to make myself feel cool like I was back in the day. It's just it's part of my story. It's my brand story. So it's relevant to everything that I'm doing here.
So how do you see AI impacting the future of podcasting and content creation?
Oh, dude, it's already impacted it significantly. I mean, we're 2 years into this AI game, and
Yeah.
it's changed the way that everybody's doing everything.
Hmm.
Whether it's using AI to write scripts for podcasts, if you have a scripted type show, or even an outline for a show that's not scripted. There's opportunities there for brainstorming. There's opportunities there. I mean, I'm literally Sarah Losi, my business partner on the branded side. She and I are working on some educational content right now, and we're planning it with ChatGPT. I mean, I use ChatGPT to break down an entire series of videos. There's about 60 videos that we've got all planned out. Guess what? We planned the topics, we planned the titles, we planned the synopsis, we planned the script for both her and I using ChatGPT. And we're able to put together this very extensive course in a super, super short amount of time. So things like that, man, it just streamlines the entire concept process. It streamlines the back end process as well. So from a post production perspective, you got tools out there like Capshow and like Cast Magic that will do your show notes for you, will generate titles for your episodes, will write summaries and blog posts and social media posts, and the list goes on and on and on. And then you've got things like CapCut, and you've got Opus clips that will sit there and look at your videos, and
Okay.
using AI will try to, and I stress try on these, I'm not overly sold on them, but they'll identify key moments throughout your videos and then turn those into reels. And,
Mhm.
I say I'm not overly sold on those. They tend to work well in certain scenarios. You kind of got to prep the data a little bit in order to get something good out of it. But honestly, it's that way with everything we're doing, whether it's trying to get video content or whether it's trying to get scripts or summaries. What you're getting out of these tools is only as good as what you're putting in.
Yeah.
So if you ask a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer. I mean, it's just that's just how it is. If you feed a video production tool, it's so video, you're going to get so results as well. So, I mean, it's just streamlining everything. It's really making things a lot easier. Some people have a perspective that it's dumbing things down. And if we have an over reliance on these tools, then sure, I can see that. We can lose, you know, the cool thing about podcasting and content creation is it allows us to be ourselves. We can
Yeah.
jump on here, we can have conversations. We bring that emotional intelligence to the forefront. And if we become too reliant on AI, we lose that emotional intelligence, because that's the one thing it can't do. It can't bring emotion into a conversation. It could not tell my red hat story. My book back
Nope.
there, as you know, I wrote it with AI, all except for chapter 3. And chapter 3 is it's the story of the red hat. So it was impossible to write the story of the red hat with AI, because AI doesn't know my story. It
Yeah.
can't tell that story. It wasn't there. It didn't experience it. And odds are nobody wrote a story about it. So it's not going to find it anywhere in any of the data that it was trained on. So you have to bring that emotional side of things into anything you're doing with AI, or it gets very, very stale very, very quick.
Yeah, no, you have to input the correct information that you want to get out of it, because it's helped me. And like I use Cast Magic, it has saved me time and post, like you said, posting blogs, posting threads, reels. It takes clips. It might give viral, and the thing is, you have to check it out. If like the thing is with Cast Magic, it shows you everything. You get to read the clip. If you feel like, oh yeah, that's a real interesting clip, then you go and you clip it and you use it. People, yes, it's made life easier for me. It's made me producing my shows so much simpler. It saves me time,
Sure.
and that's one of the key elements that you're trying to do is cut back on having a look at having a before Opus clip. It took me a couple of hours maybe to clip. Or I like this clip. Or with Opus clip, it'll pick some out. If I don't like how it sounds and I'm reading through it, and there's another part, I'm like, oh yeah, I like this information more, I'll clip that part. So
Sure.
it's like how you said, it's how you use it. It sometimes it gives you info. You got to go through it and really do your work, man. it makes work. It makes it much more simpler. But you still got to do some work.
Yeah, and even after you use it and you get that output, if you get the show notes summary or you get a blog post, it's still up to us to go back through and
And read it.
reread what it did,
Yeah.
because there's no telling what it's going to say. Odds
Mhm.
are it's going to be very accurate, but there are those times where it just prints nonsense, where
Yeah.
it's like it got lost, it hallucinated, or it just made stuff up. And that can get you in trouble if you
Yeah.
take that human component out of it and you just go with AI and just throw it out there. So that's not going to work well for you. And people need to understand that. And so many people that are AI opposed think that's what most people are doing. And those that do that, man, they get exposed with a quickness because you just can't. It's just way too obvious. And so a lot of these companies now, they're putting AI detectors out there.
Mhm.
Currently, there's not a reliable AI detector that's out there, but they're working on some technology that will be 100% accurate and be able to detect AI 100%. Matter of fact, OpenAI supposedly already has this tool. It's just not available to the public yet. I don't know if it's still in testing or what the story is, but there's going to come a time where it's going to be very, very obvious and very detectable as to what is completely AI generated and what's not.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we talked about the Red Hat story, and so so what does the role of storytelling play in building a successful brand, just like how you with the Red Hat?
Well, people resonate with stories. People
Yeah.
don't resonate. I mean, they resonate with facts, but they resonate with facts when they're presented in the shape and form of a story. So the fact that I have a story behind the red hat and that I
Mhm.
go deeper than just the story, I define what that hat is and what's underneath that hat. That's what allows people to resonate. And it's interesting from an AI perspective. AI tends to be very factual, very straightforward. Here is the fact. Here is the answer to your query. Well, it's hard for us to resonate with that because we don't relate to really just straight up facts. We relate to stories where we can identify ourselves either in that brand or in that fact that AI just put out. So if we can shape that into a story that someone can relate to, that establishes an emotional connection with you, with your brand, and the story behind your brand. And people thrive on emotion. So storytelling and brand storytelling is absolutely essential. It's a critical component to any business that's out there. If you don't have a brand story, you need to figure out what that story is. And if you don't have a brand story, you may not even have a brand. So you need to do a little soul searching. If you don't have a story behind your brand or you just made it up, I mean, I can't tell you how many brands, and I used air quotes for those that are just listening, that I went through trying to find this red hat. I mean, when I first started, my company was called Readily Random. What the hell does that mean? It don't mean anything. It's so stupid. It means nothing, and nobody can relate to that. Hell, most people could even spell it. I used to have my email was larry@readilyrandom.com, which that's still a valid email. I don't use it very often, but it's kind of a catch-all these days. But I would give people my email and they go, readily? How do you spell that? I'm like, Jesus Christ, I didn't think readily was a tough word, but there was no story behind it. It didn't mean anything. People couldn't relate to it. Then I went through what's another one I went through? I went through Podcast Boost. Podcast Boost was another brand that I went through. I went out on the Creative Market. It's a website called creativemarket.com. I found some cool little icons and a little icon pack. I spent like $50 and bought these little rocket ships, and that was going to be the Podcast Boost. And I threw it out there, and guess what? It was like X when they were first launching rockets. It just crashed. It crashed and burned. It did nothing. So it's there was no story there. I was just trying to throw stuff at the wall and trying to make something stick, and nothing stuck until the brand that presented itself was something that was authentic to me.
Mhm.
Wearing hats, I've worn hats my whole life. I always wear hats. You never, even back in the day, you rarely saw me unless I was at the office without a hat on. I love hats. So the hat was authentically me. People were already accustomed to seeing me in hats, right?
Yeah.
And the story just fell into place because I wore the hat, and the red hat just happened to be an identifying marker, but it still fit me. It still fit my personality. It wasn't something that I was forcing. I mean, hell, if you think back to those rocket ship icons that I bought, they were ugly as shit. They weren't even colors that I liked. They were some weird freaking color. I don't even know what they were. But I thought, oh, this is gonna do it. This is gonna make me money. And no, it doesn't work that way, dude. And readily random, same thing. I went back to the creative market and I bought a speaker icon. That's it, because I'm a podcaster. So readily random, we make podcasts. And it just, there was nothing there because there was no heart, no emotion, no authenticity to it. And I struggle using the word authenticity because everybody says it these days, but you'll know when you find that brand because it just authentically fits you. You know how to use the word when it's just real, when it
Yeah.
just is what it is. And when you find that one thing that is what it is, that is a real extension of you. Look at Sarah, for instance. I mean, her business is called Favorite Daughter Media. I mean,
Yeah.
she's the favorite daughter. Now, her sister probably doesn't agree with that, but in her mind, she's the favorite daughter. So it's everything that's authentically her. All of her fonts feel like her colors feel like her. It's just natural. Now, I will back that up and go, I was never really a red guy. I was always a blue guy. And I don't know, blue is just, I mean, I'm even wearing my blue hoodie right now, but blue was always my color. So it was kind of an adjustment. You know what I mean? But I mean, red's okay. I used to love the Chicago Bulls, so I can go back to the red and black. It's all good. So that's what we ended up doing. Everything now is red and black. But aside from the fact that my favorite color is blue, it was just super, super authentic. And it just worked. It just worked.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. How does your experience as a public speaker influence your approach to content creation and branding?
That's an interesting question. How does say that one more time?
How does your public speaker how does your experience as a public speaker influence your approach to content creation and branding?
I think it makes me super cautious and make sure that I know what the heck I'm talking about. Because the last thing you want to do is get on a stage in front of hundreds of people and you spit out something that you consider a fact when they can turn right around and prove you're wrong. So you got to be up to date on the latest and greatest if you're talking about content creation, especially if you're talking about technology. AI, absolutely critical, and you can get fact checked with a quickness when it comes to AI. And people love to fact check public speakers. Like, hey, you said this, but really it's this. So I think it just makes you more cognizant of what you're doing. And, I think too, that when I'm on stage, my goal is to make sure that the audience that I'm speaking to walks away with something of value. I don't want to just get up there and ramble on for 30, 45 minutes to an hour, whatever it may be, and talk about how great this is or great that is. I want something up there. I want to deliver something where people can walk away and implement whatever it is that I'm talking about immediately, whether it's in their podcast, whether it's in their business, whether it's in their brand, it doesn't matter. My goal is to provide value, actionable value with each and every talk I give. And I think that transcends down into my content as well.
Okay. What advice would you give someone looking to start out in podcasting?
Start a podcast with a plan and a purpose. Now, this is from a business/branding type podcast perspective too. I mean, if you just want to sit and talk about your favorite TV show, grab a microphone and record, and it's great. My very first podcast was a comedy podcast, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had no idea, but man, I had a bunch of fun. And the podcast to this day is still the biggest podcast I ever had. And we had no idea what we're doing, but we had fun doing it. And that was absolutely critical for that. I mean, if I think back, honestly, the very first microphone that I ever bought was a Yeti Snowball. And if you're not familiar with the Yeti Snowball, it's literally about the size of a softball and it's white and it looks like a snowball. It's just round. It's a ball. And my co-host Jamie and I, we sat in my den on the other side of the wall here. We sat on the ottoman and we cupped that snowball. And we spoke into the snowball very gently and very aware of what we were saying. We wanted to enunciate everything so that we spoke very clearly. And then we would pass the mic to the other person. They would gently cup it and do the exact same thing. And we did that back and forth for about an hour and a half. And that was how I recorded my very first podcast. Now, thankfully, we evolved from that fairly quickly. I mean, I think we moved up to like the Samsung Q2U or the ATR 2100, basic microphone. And we each had our own microphones as well. But that's how I got started, man, was just and, and honestly too, the first podcast, like I said, it was comedy, and it was very, very blue, meaning it was just as raw can be. And after we recorded that first episode and we listened back to it, we just looked at each other, we're like, we can't release this. We can't have people listen to this. This is terrible. There's no way. So that episode actually never got released, but we toned it down just a hint, not a whole lot, just a hint. And I mean, we did hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and the show went on for a couple of years. We ended up taking it to a live stage show here in Dallas, and it evolved into a comic open mic night. And that mic ran for 7 or 8 years until the club that was hosting it shut down. So it was amazing, and the show was, again, so much fun. It launched Jamie's comedy career. Jamie's down there in Austin these days, just crushing it on the comedy scene. He toured with Eddie Griffin for a couple of years, had a residency at the New Sahara in Las Vegas, all from that freaking podcast, dude. So, if you've got a passion for something and you want to do something, start the podcast for that. I sit here and I go, start a podcast with a plan and a purpose, because my business and what we do is we launch branded podcasts. So everything that we do, that we launch, it's done with a plan and a purpose, whether it's to build a brand, whether it's to tell a story, whether it's to recruit new employees, whether it's to recruit people to a mastermind. Each of the shows that we launch serves a purpose. It's not just for having fun. You should have fun too, don't get me wrong, but they have a plan and a purpose. So that's why I say, have a plan and a purpose. Understand what the podcast is for, understand what your goals are for that show, and then build the show around those goals. But if you're just two dudes or two women or whatever it may be, I don't want to say chicks, I don't want to offend anybody, but if you're just two dudes or two ladies, then grab a couple microphones and just have fun and record and do your thing. Don't take it super, super serious right out of the gate. Figure out what you're doing, have fun with it. And then as you evolve, things can change. I mean, that's exactly what ended up happening with that podcast. That podcast got so big that I had fans at the office. I was still in corporate at the time. And even the name of the show was an innuendo. And people were wearing my merch to work. And so I finally got that knock on the door going, hey, let's go talk at HR. And like, we can't have people wearing that stuff to work. So it's either the show or you. Something's got to go. So I ended up having to kill that show. And I didn't know anything really about the podcast space then, what the podcast industry was, or anything about starting a podcast other than what I had done. I didn't know there were industry standards. I didn't know there were steps to take. I didn't know how to plan a podcast. So I just started another show that was a business podcast, where I was interviewing. Well, that's where the name Readily Random actually came from. Was I started a podcast called Readily Random because I, just like most other podcasters, thought I was going to be the next Joe Rogan. And I modeled everything that I was doing after Joe Rogan. So he talks to whoever he wants to talk to. I planned on talking to whoever I wanted to talk to. And while it was fun and I talked to a lot of cool people, I mean, tons of cool people that I never would have met otherwise, didn't necessarily get a lot of traction. Didn't anywhere get close to what that first podcast did, from a numbers perspective. So it was a learning process. And that's when I really started learning about the industry of podcasting. I think I went to my first podcast movement in 2019. And then I learned that it was an industry. I started seeing other podcasters out there that were, building businesses around their podcast. I was like, oh my God, this is freaking crazy. I guess it was 2017 because I founded Readily Random Media in 2017. So I guess I went to podcast movement in 17. And that's when I started seeing the industry and what the industry was and how it kind of worked. And I started getting a grip, and I started establishing some relationships with other higher profile podcasters, and started realizing, oh, this is an industry. This isn't just a little hobby thing. This is the real deal Holyfield. And that's when things started evolving and changing for me as well.
And that's something similar to me was and I attended my first Podfest in 2021, and it made me realize, like, wow, this is huge. This is and people. It was right after the pandemic, the following year, right after the pandemic. So I call myself. I say I'm a pandemic podcast because I started because I was furloughed from work.
Yep.
I had been wanting to start a podcast for since 2019. I remember my first podcasting equipment was a little studio that I bought from Amazon. It was a Behringer mic, a Behringer mixer, a Behringer headphone,
There you go.
and my first interview was my nephew, and I didn't have the jack from the phone to go to the mixer. So what I did was hold the phone to the microphone and interviewed him that way.
Yep. Yep.
And he was like, no, we can't release this. We gotta wait till it's perfect. I'm like, nah, man, this is just the start. Like I want to just show people where we started at to where and now to where I'm at now, where I have the Rodecaster Pro. I invested in the quality mic. I got me a good camera. It was just me investing in myself because I was like, yo, I love doing this. This is
Sure.
being able to interview some amazing folks and have some great conversations. And then people respond to it by sending me messages. Oh, I heard that episode. Thank you. I needed to hear that. And to get those messages is like, hold on, what's going on here? Like,
Yep.
it's like, I was 40 something years old, didn't have purpose. I have a well-paying job, but it wasn't fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing the podcast and started receiving and people sending me messages. Oh, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. And I'm thinking to myself, I suck. I'm like, what the fuck you talking about? I don't know what's going on. But it just the encouragement and people pushing me and telling me, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. You got that voice. Keep doing it. And I'm like, all right. And it was just started growing and growing. And then I started meeting people like yourself, Alex and Filippo, Sarah St. John, the foodpreneur, and all these other people. And I'm like, oh man, these are some great people. And then when you start connecting with people and they start sharing with you how to do stuff, and like I listen to you, like when I was there for that AI, that AI at Podfest. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. This makes sense. Everything he was talking about was making sense. So I incorporated ChatGPT into my podcast, and it's helped me grow. It's helped me improve my show to where it's like, all right, the numbers is generating numbers now.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, okay, this is all right, and I kind of went from talking to everybody to like, all right, this is who I want to talk to. These are the people I want to speak to. I want to speak to coaches. I want to speak to entrepreneurs. These are the people I want. And then I niched it down. And from there, the last 2 years have been my best 2 years. I've been doing the growth from I'm from 500 downloads in my first year to now over almost 33,000 downloads.
Wow. That's awesome, dude. That is amazing.
I'm like, okay, this is, and it's all from learning from people like yourself, learning from Alex, being able to have the chance to even message someone like Alex, like, hey Alex, I got a question. And he is one of those guys that he loves to help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Hell, he just told me today. I just reached out to him today. I need to meet so and so. You know so and so. He's like, yeah, I got you. I'm like, all right, cool. So yeah, it's great to have those. You know what I mean? You got to have that support system there.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, definitely. So how do you stay ahead of the curve in such a rapidly evolving industry?
Well, I tell this story and a lot of people don't buy it, but I promise it's true. So I wake up every morning around 4 a.m. I don't know why. I don't set an alarm. This isn't something I'm doing because I'm better than everybody. It's just because I'm old and my body goes, it's time to get up. So I wake up around 4 o'clock every day, and I sleep on the couch also because I've been married 24 years as of last Monday. So, ain't no need to be in the bed together no more. We've been there, done that, got the t-shirts. So, and I got a bad back. So the couch works. So I roll off the couch and I go in there and I brush my teeth and I grab me a Monster because I'm a Monster junkie. Crawl back on the couch. I turn on YouTube and I watch videos, dude. That's my education time. And I'll sit there and I'll watch a couple of videos, get the latest and greatest on AI, get the latest and greatest on podcasting, see what I can find out there. And I'll watch videos until I either go back to sleep, or if I'm not falling back to sleep, I switch from YouTube to Andy Griffith and I watch me some Andy Griffith and fall back to sleep. So that's what I do literally every day. It's like clockwork. It just happens every day of my life. That's my time. So you don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You don't have to drink a Monster, and you don't have to care anything about Andy Griffith, but you do have to find a time in your schedule to invest in yourself, to
Mhm.
invest in that education.
Yeah.
And that just happens to be the time that works best for me. Once I get up and I get going, I'm typically way too involved in doing something else, or who knows what it is. Life just gets in the way, whether it's business, whether it's taking care. I got a brand new puppy, and I don't know if you can see my hand, but he's tore the hell out of my hand. He's just, man, little son of a
I
gun.
see it.
He's a
Yeah.
biter, boy. Yeah, it's crazy. But whether it's playing with my pup or whatever it may be, it's hard to find that time during the day to get that education in. So I picked that time of the morning, and it works out perfect for me. So what you have to do is you have to find that time for you, whether it's 4 a.m., whether it's 4 p.m., whether it's midnight, whatever time works best for you, where you can sequester yourself for a good 30 minutes, maybe an hour a day. And I say a day because that's what it takes. You know, you asked me earlier, how does being a public speaker influence your content creation? Well, this is what I have to do to make sure that when I am on a stage, I know what I'm talking about and I am up to date. You have to invest in yourself and find that time. I don't care when it is. Find that time. Maybe you're on the treadmill, or maybe you're on the stationary bike, and you jump on YouTube, and while you're cranking away on those pedals or walking your 10,000 steps or whatever it is, maybe you're taking in video content then. But
Mhm.
find that time, because that's the only way to stay ahead.
And that's where I've gained a lot of my knowledge, is where I've learned how to edit and my videos, audios was through YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I learned, and that's where I learned about some of the tools that I use was through YouTube. It's been I call it, like people call it, YouTube University.
Yeah.
It's helped me out in so many ways. It's helped me grow, and it's every day. It's something I'm always researching something, trying to find out something new about podcasting or whatever it
Sure.
is that's going on. And that's how I've been able to learn. I check out what you, when I see you got something new, I go check what you got, and that's how I keep, same way. That's how I keep informed.
Yeah. And newsletters are great too. I mean, I probably subscribe to at least a half a dozen AI newsletters. And of course, when it comes to podcasting newsletters, I'm the editor in chief of the Podfest Messenger. So I
I
tend
get
to
that
read
one.
that one since
Yes.
I write it. Pod News is another great one. What was the other one? Podcast Business Journal, although they've been absorbed essentially by Pod News, they still put out they put out something that usually has one or two stories associated with it. It's not quite as robust as it used to be because, again, they rolled it into Pod News. But I mean, there's great newsletters out there that give you specific content that's relevant to whatever you're doing, whether
Yeah.
it's podcasting or AI or marketing or branding. Find some high quality newsletters and subscribe to them. They drop them right there in your inbox every day. And while you're sitting there, like I said, during your education time, catch up on those newsletters. There's usually great articles that have been curated specifically for that subject matter. And it's quick, it's easy, it's typically a fast read, and super, super informative.
Yeah, it really is. That's another way. Yeah, I'm subscribed to the Podfest newsletter, Pod News also, and there's a couple of other ones I'm subscribed to, and then when I get up, because I have to be at work at 3:45 in the morning, so
Whew.
I'm up at 2 in the morning, take my shower, have my coffee, and I'll sit down, check my emails, watch a couple of videos, whatever, and then I'm off to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I come back, it's the time where I start setting up to do my show. And so I gotta. That's one thing I've learned, was to schedule. That's where I learned about making sure I follow a schedule and work on building a schedule. Because before it was just like, all right, I'm recording at this time and I'm doing this. I was like, nah, I need to really start building some structure. I
Yep.
really need to start really scheduling things like this is my recording time. This is when the show is going to happen this time. And it's got to be that consistently with that time. So I've learned so much as far as structuring my show and everything because of people like yourself and other people that I've been able. Phil Better is someone else that I've
Oh,
learned a
feels
lot
great.
from.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Phil's amazing, and to be able he's the one who got me to do my email list. He's got me automation, how to send out my newsletter every week, and he took me under his wing. He says, "Yo, I'm doing the beta program. I see that you're serious, you're dedicated. Here, come test this out for me." And when I went and I learned so much, and I've been like, it's helped me improve in what I'm doing, and I'm like, it's a blessing to be able to have people like that, to connect with people like that, that they see that you're dedicated and wanting to learn and wanting to build, that they're willing to, I'm trying this out. I want you to test it out for me. Here you go.
Sure.
So I love it, man. I'm blessed to be able to have found podcasting, and the community is just amazing. The people, the networking, and the people in it are just, it's like we go to Podfest and it's like it's just like one big family.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I love it. I love that community that it's almost like a family reunion every year when
Yeah.
we go to Podfest because it's like,
Yeah.
there's 2,000 people there. We know them all.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I remember one time, the first time I went, I was learning about Reaper, and and I was watching YouTube videos, and I go through walk because outside of the in Podfest, everywhere you meet everyone in the hallways. That's where a lot of the magic happens,
Yep.
is in the hallways.
Yep.
So I'm walking through and I see this somebody, and they're talking about the promoting Reaper and all that, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, I know you. And then when we start talking and everything, he's actually the guy I've been watching his videos.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's too funny.
I'm like, man, I've watched all your videos on Reaper and how to use it. Like, yo, you've helped me so much. He's like, thank you. And then another person I got to meet, because all right, so when I first started podcasting, I didn't have no clue. So I invested in pod decks, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Look at here. Look at here.
yeah,
Look
yeah,
at
bro. Well, look, I invested in pod decks, right?
here.
I invested in pod decks. So
Oh, that's too
to
funny.
actually get to meet Travis and Dan and everything, and
Yep.
really speak to him, was like, I was like, oh man, this is amazing. I actually get to meet with because when the pod decks came out, that was Dan first started. Like, he was first starting, Dan and Travis. This is when they first started doing, and they've grown and blown up, and they're
Oh, yeah.
out there. But it was so cool to really meet them in person, and be like, yo, this is where I started with you guys with pod decks and all this, and it was just amazing to be able to have those conversations and meet them, and meet those people that you would, it's like you would have never known. You would have met these persons in real life. Like, man, I thought
Yeah.
it's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great community, and it really is amazing to see when people they're influencers in the
Yeah.
space, and you're right there. You've used their products, you've watched their videos, you've listened to their podcast, and now you're standing there face to face with them, and you realize, wow, they're just like me.
Yeah, they're just
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
regular
they're just
dudes.
regular peeps, man, and it just makes it all that much better.
It's like you. Is I see you, and I see you when you show your news and all, when you're on the news and you're talking about. I'm like, but then I go and I'm like, but I've sat down with Larry and we've had some talks and we've chilled, and I'm like, he's like me. He's just a regular
Yeah.
dude.
It is. It's just It's really amazing to see it because, and it's funny because in this community, it seems like when you meet the people that you look up to, they're just regular everyday cats.
Mhm.
And I've met some real celebrities in my time, and they say don't ever meet your heroes, and they say that for a reason, but that does not appear to be the case in the podcast space. I've never come across somebody in the podcast space where I'm like, well, shit, wish I had met them. I liked them a lot better before I met them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So there's a couple celebrities out there where I have met them, and I'm like, yeah, I wish I hadn't, because I liked their movies a lot more before I met them. Now I'm not sure I can watch that one again. So,
All right. So how do you measure the success of a podcast or any of your digital content campaign?
man, there's so many different ways to measure quote unquote success. It kind of goes back to what's your plan and your purpose for the show or the content that you're creating. If you're creating content that's just fulfilling, that first podcast that I had didn't have a plan, didn't have a purpose other than me and my homeboy got together and we cracked dirty jokes and we talked to strippers and we talked to crazy ambulance chasing lawyers and we talked to the craziest guests you've ever met in your life. And that was it. That was success for us because it was just fun. We eventually took it to a studio here in Dallas. So we'd go into the studio and they stuck us on it Sunday morning at 10 a.m. right after the preacher. And we're like, what the heck? You're sticking, you do know our content, right? So the preacher would come out of the studio. We'd go into the studio. And at this time we had a whole entourage. There were 6 or 8 of us that was on the show. And we go in there, we just have a blast and we would laugh and it was the best. That was success in our eyes. It opened up stages. We got on stage. We got to do open mics and did comedy. Then we got to do some not so open mics, some actual mics in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Then Jamie took it to heights well beyond anything that I ever experienced from a comedy perspective. But man, it was a ton of fun, and that was success. If you start a podcast that's your goal is to monetize, you want to use it as a secondary source of income, and you grow that show and you establish an audience and you find sponsors or you find additional ways to monetize, some indirect monetization opportunities that are working out for you. Maybe you're selling merch, maybe you're selling Patreon, maybe you got a Patreon account or something and you're selling behind the scenes or bonus footage and people are signing up. Maybe you're making 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 grand a month extra income off of your show. That could be success. One of my clients, he has a very high dollar mastermind. It's like $25,000 a year to join his mastermind. He launched a podcast, and everybody that he brings on the podcast, it's a potential person for his mastermind. So his whole goal is if I get somebody on my podcast and then I recruit them into my mastermind, boom, that's success. So what is success? Success is whatever you define it as. And once you define what you look at as success and you achieve that, then your content and your podcast is successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It does. So can you talk about the role of audience engagement in the success of your brand and podcast?
I mean, audience engagement, it's kind of what drives us, right? I mean, I know I went through a lot of times where ain't nobody listening to my content, ain't nobody downloading my podcast, ain't nobody watching my live stream, ain't nobody engaging, ain't nobody saying hi, ain't nobody saying go away, ain't nobody saying nothing. And it's funny because if you dial it back when I first started speaking, right? I started speaking by doing virtual engagements, right? These virtual conferences, because I started speaking, I don't know, it was a little before COVID, but then COVID kicked in and it just drove virtual events even further,
Yeah.
But if you've ever gone live on Facebook, right, you can look in that top left-hand corner of the screen and you can see how many people are watching your live stream on Facebook. And guess how many people were watching my first, I don't know, 82 talks? Zero. I look up at that top left-hand corner, it's a goose egg. And I'm like, why is nobody engaging with this content? What is going, audience engagement was absolutely critical. But now I'll tell you what's even worse. What's worse is when you do a Facebook Live, you look up there and you see one, you're like, oh, I got somebody. and then after like 30 seconds, they jump ship.
Right?
And you're like, oh, it hurts so bad. I'd rather just nobody. So, audience engagement is absolutely critical. I think for the content creator, we want to know that what we're doing is impacting somebody in some way, shape, fashion, or form. We want to know that people are listening. We want to know that people are watching. So, audience engagement, I think, is absolutely critical. And if you're not getting that audience engagement, then you need to kind of reevaluate what you're doing and figure out what you could tweak a little bit to get that engagement up.
Okay. It seems like I go live, right? Because first of all, I don't want to edit anymore.
My man, I dig that. I dig that a lot. There is nothing on this planet that I hate more than editing a podcast.
Yeah.
I
So that
hate it so
so
freaking
so
much.
so going live has cut
Oh,
that up. Has
yeah,
cut
it's
that.
out. It's done.
That's
Yeah, I
done.
love it.
I ain't gotta edit shit no more. But then you also get people that they'll stop by. They hey, like my man Tony Cass just stopped by. He said, hey
What's up,
guys.
Tony? Yeah.
The pod guys, y'all gotta check them out. They're some great guys. There's some funny
Yeah,
dudes.
man. I was just on their show, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that.
So the pod guys got you before I did? Oh,
Well,
man.
they don't book 6 months in advance, bruh. They were like on Monday going, hey, you want to be on our show tomorrow? I'm like, okay, cool, it works. So they book like a day in advance. So
It's actually it's just cool because we're both in Northeast Pennsylvania. Tony and I actually got to meet Kevin. I used to go to the casino and he worked at an establishment that was in the casino, and it was funny the way we met because at that time it was right after COVID, and he's wearing a mask, and I'm sitting down having dinner with my wife, and he's serving me, and I'm hearing his voice, and he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and I go, Neary? He goes, Wise? Oh, it was
that's crazy, dude.
It was just crazy. And my wife was like, what the hell is going on?
It's a
Like,
podcast thing, baby.
yeah,
Just
but
hang
yeah,
on.
it's like this is one of my podcasting buddies, babe. Yeah, that's all it is.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story.
It was just funny. I'm listening to his voice and I'm like, man, I know this dude. I know the joke because even he's a jokester just like he is on the show. Like even when he was waiting tables.
Dude, he blew me away. We got on there and he just went on a tangent, and I'm like, I was like, man, this is gonna be a wild ride.
He does. He goes on some crazy. And so, but it was just funny, like how life and we've become good friends since then.
That's cool, man.
But it was no. I love the pod guys. I've been on their show about 2-3 times. So
that's cool, man.
I have a good time, man.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm there. But brother, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, man. I love this, man.
I appreciate you, man.
I
It was worth the wait. It was worth the wait.
I appreciate you. I just want to let you know that, man. Thanks for stopping by and sharing everything you've been sharing. But now it's you get the solo layout, you get to plug away, let everybody know where they find you, everything.
Yeah, man, I keep it super simple. It's LarryRoberts.com. Everything there will give you all the information on podcasting, branding, and AI solutions for all the above. If you're looking to book a speaker, I've got a speaker tab on there that tells you all of my keynote talks that I have available. It's all right there. It's super simple, LarryRoberts.com. I also host a podcast called Branded with my business partner, Sarah Losi. So if you want to know about personal branding and all things branding related, check out Branded as well. You can go to listentobranded.com and check out all the episodes, or you can find us on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those popular players there. Would love to hear from you.
And once again, brother, thank you for stopping by and gracing us with your presence and everything. You are one of the dudes out there that I truly do respect and enjoy watching your content and someone I admire and look up to because I've learned a lot from you.
Thanks,
just
man.
Watching you blow up and do what you're doing. It's an encouragement to me to be like, man, Larry's doing it. Larry's killing it. and that motivates me because I know you're just a regular dude like me.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to be like, yo, and just same thing with Alex, just seeing what he's doing, all the great things that he's doing. and he's one of the most down to earth people you will ever meet.
And he's that genuine. I want to say this because I say this all the time, but Alex Sanfilippo, truly one of the most genuine.
Yeah.
And really, it pisses me off because you know,
No one can be that nice. No one can be that nice.
I figure we're gonna get in the Uber and he'll finally let his hair down, and now we can bullshit a little bit and we'll talk shit about some people. No, bro is still just as loving, just as kind, just as genuine. It's the most unrealistic thing you've ever seen in your life, but real. He lives it, breathes it. He is it, man. He's the personification of just an amazing human being. So
he's like great. You can be like, no one can be that fucking nice.
But dude, I'm telling you, it's just me and him in the Uber just chilling for 45 minutes to wherever. I think it was in Colorado. We were taking an Uber someplace, and just still same cat, nothing different, bro.
He don't change. No, he don't. I've been fortunate enough to sit down and eat with him and chill with him at Firefest, and he's just one of the most genuinely great guys.
Yeah.
You can't believe like this actually someone this nice.
Yeah, it's sickening. It makes me nauseous. So, anyways, with that, I gotta go because I'm feeling a little. Feeling a little bit, but no, dude, seriously, I appreciate all the kind words you said about me. Really appreciate you having me on the show. This was great. Anything you ever need from me, I'm right here for you. And it goes for anybody else who's listening or watching as well. Don't hesitate to reach out, please. I'd love to talk to anybody out there, answer any questions you have, or maybe help you find what your plan and purpose is for your podcast. So hit me up.
Thank you, brother, man. I appreciate it, man. And you have a great day.
All right. You too, brother.
All right. Peace. All right. Now it's time for me to close out the show. It's been great having Larry on the show, but big shout out to my Real Wise fam. Probably Jay, Brandy J, love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady, love you and appreciate you. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.